I turned my art into an empire. I turned my art into an empire. I turned my art into an empire. I turned my art into an
Uncle Dad's
empire.
multiverse.
I turned my art into an empire.
Yes.
I turned my art into an empire. I turned my art into an empire. I turned my art into an empire.
The podcast is here to unearth the clues, to share gems, wisdom from those who pay dues, to the kings and queens behind the scenes who've done the work, planted seeds, and built the dream. Art to empire, desire for autonomy, dropping tricks of the trade for all of us to peep. Don't sleep, don't sleep. Wake up to find this knowledge on top, edutainment at its finest. Lo and behold, unfold the hidden scroll. It's time to shed the light on the stories untold. This podcast is bold, we speak the truth. Each one teach one is the good power you. Bukue, one step beyond the host. Director of the vibes with a gang of jokes. Tune in, tell a friend, share the wealth of game. Take notes, these words spoke, release the chains. Free up the brain with ideas galore. So many career hacks, mentors to explore. Free up the brain with ideas galore. So many career hacks, mentors to explore for sure.
I turned my art to empire. I turned my art to one eye. I turned my art
Yes,
to
indeed.
empire. I turned my art to empire. I turned my art to empire.
It's like, why is my man coming in so hot? Yo, all right. That's the theme song. And I feel like every good podcast deserves a good theme song. And if the podcast host is a producer and an MC, there's no reason he should not be able to make his own intro. Thus I did. So we are here at Art to Empire Radio. I'm your host, Tion Bukue, aka Mr. Generous. We got another special guest in the house, my man, my brethren, who brought a whole bunch of dope everything. I mean, just merch, collabs, and so much to get into. But I'm going to let my man introduce himself. Yo, tell him who you are and where you're from.
Yo, what up? This is Jesse Hernandez, the Urban Aztec, born and raised in the East Bay, visual artist out here doing everything from murals to toys to posters, illustration, animation, tattoos, all across the board.
All right. So how long have you... All right. You already answered number one. What are your primary art forms for your business?
Got you. So I would say murals are a primary focus, toy design, also various forms of illustration and design for apparel or other logo type stuff. I also do flash animation, well, what it used to be known as.
Okay.
Now it's just animate, right?
Yeah.
But so I used to do a lot of that, and occasionally gigs come up still, so I'm actually doing something in that still at the moment.
Right. Multiple lanes.
What else? But yeah, no, it's a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. Okay. You've turned your art into an empire.
Yeah.
But so when in your artistic path did you decide or realize this is actually financially viable to be a career?
I think for me, art was always kind of something that I had to do.
Right,
So it was
right.
like there was no. I've done plenty of other jobs where you were not, art focused. And
Right.
It would drive me crazy.
Right.
You always had to have some sort of creative outlet, and so I think when you could finally get jobs that were focused on art. So I was doing stuff that was different gigs for studios and things like that, working in television and production, video games, stuff like that.
Right.
But even then, I was always doing my own stuff on the side.
Right, okay.
So, and then I've been 100% freelance the last 9 years.
Last 9 years. So, but what year was that when you first was like, okay, you know what? When was the first time you made money off of your art? When your first commission or any of that?
Probably in 95.
95? What was it?
At the time, I think I was airbrushing shirts.
Oh, okay. So you come back from okay.
But yeah, and then I was also doing I did some book cover illustration stuff also.
Okay.
And then I was trying to get into comics and animation at the time, and I learned quickly that I wasn't so much the sequential art dude as that much, like,
Right.
Because I got so obsessed with each piece, right? So it was like,
Oh, okay.
I don't want to leave stuff, like partially done and just keep, moving across,
Right, which
I
is
wanna
in
do it.
comics, you're only a part of the process. You're not the whole process, so you can't, yeah.
So I think I was more like, well, I think I'm more of a cover dude, like
Right.
just make one thing
that's
that pops
all
really
yours.
hard, yeah,
Right.
and then it's you focused on that one image,
Right.
But so yeah, it's funny that eventually now we're back to where I'm kind of doing stuff related to comics, where that's where I wanted to start.
Right,
Never broke in and got lost in other stuff. And
Right.
now find myself finally there. It only took 25 years.
Yeah, we call it the scenic. We call it the scenic route.
Yeah, for real.
There were other things you had to accomplish and acquire before you were in the right disposition with your styles and probably value and understanding how to navigate these different things. So, okay, let's just take it back. So you said you started, you first sold something around 95, and then just 9 years ago, you went full time.
Yeah.
Right. So how did you make that jump from art on the side, make a little money here and there? I got a job though, so I could feed my family, and then we about to just go ahead and do this.
So I actually got pushed into it. Because
Your wife?
no,
I'm
so
just kidding.
yeah,
You need to just focus on your art.
yeah.
Shit you never hear from a wife.
She's always had my back and everything. But
Right.
I was at the time I worked at Zynga, which was a video game company.
Is that
in San Francisco.
ZYNGA? Is
Yeah.
that what that is? Okay, yeah.
And so I was there for 3 years, and they eventually basically went through a whole thing of layoffs, which I was kind of used to being the last man standing.
Right.
And even something like, how can this be? But all right, I guess this is happening. And so I got clipped after 3 years of being there.
Right.
And so at that time, I got basically pushed into being 100% freelance.
Oh, because you got laid off?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah.
He's saying it in such a poetic way. I'm like, so did they make you? Okay, they was basically like, you don't have a job, and so.
Yeah, and so it was, and then it was like, well, how's this gonna work? You know what I mean?
Right.
And it took a while, but I feel like every year you would keep building on what you're doing.
Right.
And trying different ways to make it work. And I think another revelation I had too was, I don't know if this might answer another question later, but I started realizing, so I would always do signings at conventions and things like that.
Right.
But I didn't have a steady presence.
Right.
So I started realizing I need to get out and show my work and have something up wherever I'm at too, because then, people might miss you pretty easily amongst everything going on. So I started doing more conventions where I was only doing maybe 1 or 2 a year back then, and now I'm doing a lot more. But yeah, no, I mean, getting laid off was terrifying, obviously.
Right. It's turned out to be a blessing for quite a few people.
Yeah. And it was just kind of like, all right, well, they're pushing me to take the leap I wasn't going to do.
Right.
I was like, I was fine doing stuff, creating, art, animation stuff for a video game. Actually, so I worked on Farmville, of all games.
Oh, okay. Well, see, I could tell by your style, looking at what I'm seeing, I could see that was where you was.
And they literally asked me when I was being interviewed, they're like, dude, are you sure you can do this? This looks really cute compared to what you do.
You're like, oh, you just ain't seen that side yet.
I'm like, yeah, no, I don't talk about that. But I've been doing that for a while.
Right.
But no, it was funny, man. So I ended up having, I think, the highest selling stuff that they ever made in that game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I don't know what that means, but
yeah, I was gonna say, there's obviously things you can in-game purchases. Is that what you're talking about? Or?
So there was particular assets people could buy within the game.
Okay.
And they would collect these different things. But so then the top selling ones were always the horses in that game, right? And so, but it was always kind of like we don't just let anyone touch that. That's our money right there.
Right.
And so when I finally got the chance at it, I did the number 1 and number 2 of all time.
Wow.
For them, and they're like, okay, cool, you can do some other stuff.
Okay, so so you showed and proved that you could draw a horse.
Right.
That would be as commercially viable as their horses.
They let me get kind of, edgy with it, because I'm that dude.
But some sharp edges on the horses.
So I did the Nightmare Stallion.
Oh, okay.
All right, cool. That looks literally fire.
So you brought a little more dark, and you didn't really go soft. He was like, You said you could, and you got it, and then turned it to nightmare.
We'll keep your cute aesthetics, but we're gonna make it more,
Right.
more hardcore.
like dark cute.
yeah,
Like dark cute is like everything now. I mean, my daughter's 15. There's a lot of dark cute fashion.
yeah, no doubt.
You know, I don't know if that's what they probably don't call it dark cute. But
Well, I mean, that's kind of like the whole vinyl toy stuff too, where it's kind of like, oh, this is something that's kind of cute, but also like it's gangster and can kill you at the same
Right,
time.
right.
Or it's like there's something really messed up about it. But it's
right. The juxtaposition of that. So,
cute. That contrast for sure.
so the first year of going completely full time on your art, like
Yeah.
how did that conversation first go with your wife, and then how was it the first year? Because usually, first year is not, unless you just landed, you was already on, you had such a following already. But like, how was that?
So I actually painted a lot that year. So like it was kind of weird because things were already lined up for like right when that ended. So like actually that piece that I showed you for the Oakland Museum.
Yeah.
So I painted a mural for the Oakland Museum that year, 2014, and it
Right.
was like. Even at the time, I was like, well, how am I going to have time to paint this? And I got laid off. I guess I got time
You're
now.
like, oh, well, I guess I have time.
So
Right.
yeah, did that, and then there was a few other pieces, and then I was painting in San Francisco with Twick and Spy and Jet Martinez, just was suddenly available for more stuff.
Right,
I'm
right.
like, all right, cool, yeah, well let's go paint, bro. I don't want to think about this.
Right. So you were already you were already building your network for years, obviously, long before you went full time. So you had
For sure.
kind of you have relationships and some value, some cred. Because I was going to ask you, like, how are you getting these gigs in the first year?
Yeah, so my whole, I guess, what would you call that? I guess connections. It's all built through network, really.
Yeah.
Right? And so the strength of the relationships you've built over time.
Right.
And knowing a lot of people in a lot of places, and kind of being your own agent, really.
Right.
And because that's always been one thing too. I've kind of tripped on is like, do you need an agent or someone like that too? Right.
Right. It's a topic.
But that's just been like, well, if I already have the connections to folks, I don't necessarily need that unless they're bringing more to the table.
Right. So my question, I guess, since man, you that was number 7. Okay.
Sorry, bro. I read a couple questions, bro. Sorry if I jumped ahead.
Oh no, it's all good. This is why it's like that's a loose roadmap, but it goes where it goes.
Yeah.
And if we go from 1 to 6 to 4 to 2, then that's what it is. So let's talk about that real quick before we get into detail. Like, so you don't have a manager or an agent?
No,
Never have.
no.
Okay.
And because we were talking about the going freelance stuff too, right?
Yeah.
And so
The different
it's still
ways of-
somewhat related, but sorry if I jump back to
No,
it. We'll come
we
back
good.
this way.
We good.
But yeah, I mean, for me, it was how are you gonna make this work, right? How
Right.
can you possibly make enough to provide for your family like you've been doing, right?
Right.
So right away I was like, oh well, that 401k is gone, like
Right,
So
right.
that's what I lived on for a minute, just
Right.
while I figured out what was next.
Right.
And I'm like, all right, cool. So what can I get into? Then, I tried to get other art jobs at first, but then it was like, you're too old, bro. Like, legit ageism.
Right.
They're like, we'd rather hire anyone out of school than the experienced person.
Right.
Why would we want someone that knows what they're doing?
Yeah,
That
we
doesn't
want
make
someone who
sense.
can tell them what to do.
Yeah, like,
Yeah, right.
And so that was weird. I would still get like animation gigs here and there.
Right.
And then we'd be painting, and I mean, I guess I've always been doing so many different things that there was stuff popping. I just suddenly had more time for it.
Right.
So then I just started trying to stack, right?
Right, nurture them more and really dive in, yeah.
But then, so each year you're kind of like, you'll be good for a minute, but then once something, if there's nothing popping at the moment, you're like, well, how do I start creating the next thing, or what do I need to work on now? And so there's never, you never sleep really.
Right.
Like you're always thinking of something, whether or not you're drawing or painting or whatever happens to be, you're still plotting on whatever the next thing is. Right. And how do I make something jump off, or what should be going on? How can I push into something else? And I think I actually got into tattooing for a while too at that time.
Right.
And then, did that for a few years. And while I was trying to figure other stuff out too. And that was super dope as well, getting to work on that. And then, yeah, bro, like it's all kind of a roller coaster, right?
Yeah.
Where that's the only way I can really describe it. And I thought it was kind of not amusing, but it was validating for when everybody went through COVID and suddenly didn't know how they're going to get paid, when they're going to get paid.
Right.
I'm like, bro, I've been living like this for 8-9 years.
I self-induced COVID on myself, so I had to learn how to figure this out.
You understand freelance artist gigs, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think people who work for themselves, unless they were solely in the entertainment industry, which half my friends were, booking agents, touring artists, that they had to learn
It's
a
all
whole
the same,
different,
right?
Well, their whole industry got hacked away, so they really had to get even more creative. But at least they were used to being like, I need to create something. But one of the big gems I'm hearing from you is you've diversified your creative lanes so much that by the time you took the leap to really focus full time, you had already planted a lot of seeds in a lot of different lanes.
Yeah.
And that to me that's what I've done. So that's one of my stabilities is that it's diversified.
Yeah.
But also it stabilizes you because you have so many different lanes that it's not just one or the other. It's like, no, I've diversified. So if this is slow, I'm gonna get into tattooing more. If tattooing is like slowing down, but this picking up, I'm gonna go get my murals bond. Or it's all. But so that's a gem. Just diversify.
For real. Yeah.
Like really diversify if you want to like string together a complete income. Is diversity. Now here's the other challenge. Most artists can't handle business well. So the diversifying the talents is one thing, but handling business. So do you enjoy handling the business, like the follow-ups, the building relationships, the paperwork? How do you do that? You have no agent, no manager, but yet,
Right.
I mean,
I hate paperwork, bro. That's my least favorite thing to do is to have to switch brain modes, right?
Right, yeah.
I'm able to do it, but I can't stand it. Let's see. Well, I do enjoy networking and chopping it up, meeting people.
Yeah.
And like, it's because that was another thing too. Is you're always learning, right?
Yeah.
And so it's, what are these dudes into? How do they get into that? Like, in respectfully like learning from each other.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
Generally, people have a question for me too or something, so we're always bouncing info off each other. Like, yo, how'd you get this made? I'm like, oh yeah, this is how you did it. Blah 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 blah.
Right, building on it.
So always kind of doing that, and then I think starting to understand how different things work, also in like within companies and whatever. Right, is another talent. It's like, all right, so to get work with these people, who do you need to know? Right. And that's another thing that is, it's all who you know also. Yeah. In everything in life. Right. And it's, not necessarily that they can make anything happen for you. You still have to be talented to make it work. Yeah. But they can open the door for you. Yeah. And then you have to kick it in. Right. And that's,
know what questions to ask and know how to maintain a relationship and
100%.
How to not burn it down the first, all that stuff. So,
so back to business stuff. Also, that's another thing. So say like contracts, right? Yeah. Like, that is a whole other mode that I have to get into is reviewing your own contracts, making sure everything's on point. And I think, I'm decent at negotiating. Right. I wouldn't say I'm like fantastic at it. Right. There's some different jobs where, like, say when you're talking about toys and contracts and stuff like that, like, you really have to know what's happening in there, and there's certain words you always have to watch out for. Right. And then I think it's just a matter of learning that sort of stuff, and then I guess and I think that all comes from experience, right? So it's like, did you get burned? Yes. Right. Don't get burned again.
What was that?
As long as you learn from it, it's not as bad, right? It's a hard lesson, but if
you're still alive, you can live. So before we get out of that specific thing, you said there's like certain words you learn to look for. What are some of those words when you're dealing with those contracts and pertains to toys and stuff?
Exclusive and non-exclusive, for sure. If possible, you want to retain rights to everything you're doing. Right. With whether that's music, toys, art, whatever that happens to be. And I've seen some contracts that some people are very cool, like, and looking out for you, and other ones, sometimes they don't even mean to be screwing you over, and they do.
It's just in that contract they were handed by their...
Yeah, I found this contract online, and here it is. I'm like, oh, why'd you give it to me? Like,
right. This is exclusivity in perpetuity.
Yeah, like in everything.
Did you mean that?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I didn't mean that. I just meant that.
There's all types of weird stuff. But that's one of the first things I look for is that. Right. and then the term also, like you said, in perpetuity or
Right.
versus how long is it?
Learn those words in perpetuity. Like that's a word you want to avoid unless they're paying you in perpetuity as well.
Unless there's
If they're paying you in perpetuity, it's like, all right, fair is fair.
if you go pay us in perpetuity, I guess it's good.
Right, right. Still think about it, but I mean, no, those are things to look for. So how do you partition your time, let's say in a day and a week, between the stuff you got to do on the business administration side and then the creative side?
Let's see. It all depends, right? Kind of like whatever needs to be done right now, I think is how it goes down.
Really?
Like, all right, so we got a bunch of stuff going on. What's due first and what's paying most?
Right.
Or what will get me a hot water if I don't do it right now? Or
Right.
What is the priority that is beating the other ones? But ultimately, if I have a choice, I'm going to do what I'm most excited about.
Right.
So like if I feel like when I first hear about a project, that's the most excited I'm going to be.
Right.
So I kind of want to dive in immediately.
Right.
All right. Everything else I'm doing, cool. Kick it to the side because I'm hyped on this right now.
Right.
You know, and being hyped about it is hard to fake, right?
Right.
So, doing stuff that you're not excited about as an artist, you're kind of like, why do I want to drudge through this right now?
Right.
I want to do stuff I'm hyped to do. So yeah.
Right. So, but that doesn't mean you forsake all the paperwork, follow-up emails, and all that stuff for new art projects. So how do you do that? Because
I think sometimes I spend all day just doing that, like just everything but art.
Right. Okay.
Like literally, I'll spend 3 days just doing
to make sure
email,
it's on.
follow-up, connect this, that, the other thing, and then hopefully draw for like a couple hours at the end of the night,
right?
Like at like 2 a.m.
right? Right. But I mean, the fact that you will do that. And you understand the ecosystem of, if I want to be an independent artist, I'm not just fully an artist. Like I have to be a businessman as well. I have to be able to handle my business, or else I won't have much business to handle. And I think that's a really tough dynamic for artists. Thus, some artists have agents and manager, or they should.
Right.
Because if you're not willing to do that part of the job, then you should probably have someone doing it for you because it needs to be done. Like when I managed Dell, what I told Dell and what my mission was to be as on it, as progressive, and as creative with my business management as he was as an artist.
That's what's up.
So we balanced out. Like I'm on that like that. So he doesn't have to worry about this because I'm feeding off of what he's doing, where he's going. I'm spending so much time with him learning about what direction he's taking in his music, what he wants to do more of, what he wants to do less of.
Yeah.
And then processing that and then flipping it my way in a business sense so that it looks like, so this is Dell's emceeing and this is Dell's management, and you can see they're both very progressive and they fit Dell.
Yeah.
And a lot of artists are just, I want to do art, but then they're independent. And it's like, well, if you're going to be independent, then you're not going to be just an artist. Just the same way as if you're a chef at a fine restaurant and all of a sudden you open your own restaurant, you're no longer just the chef.
Yeah.
So
no, you're everything.
Right. So you have that discipline, which is,
Well, that was a weird thing too. Like when you go from being an artist to say an art director, suddenly you are not doing art. You're telling other people how to do art,
right?
Or something along that line,
right?
And I had to do that a couple times in my career. And I never trained for it,
right?
So you're suddenly like, wait, I don't do this anymore. I'm just telling people how to do theirs better,
right?
This is weird.
It's a different thing, right?
I ran into that in. I worked on a cartoon back in the day, and it was called the Nut Shack, right? And it was a real good time. It was hilarious, but like we were all kind of thrown into the fire,
right?
And like, what are you doing now? So I was like initially the only dude doing animation, right? The whole kind of thing. It was the writer and me, and that was it. And
were there horses in it? Sorry.
No. Yeah.
Okay. No common theme for horses through his career.
No. Okay. That was a much later time, and we were all kind of shocked that worked, but
right.
But yeah, so like getting into that, it was kind of trippy because then I had to explain my style of animation, which I didn't even understand kind of how to talk about.
Right, how to actually,
what I mean? And like, they're like, how do you do this? How do you do that? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just kind of doing it. How do I develop words for something I don't talk about? It's just a visual understanding.
Right. So finding the verbiage to translate.
Yeah. And so, like then trying to like teach people how to draw kind of how I was doing it. And And it was a trip, man. So then we went into actually to voice acting with comedians and stuff like that for that show. And I would be kind of like trying to push them in their, voice acting and whatever else. Like, well, here's how I accentuate this part or this and that. And it's all just kind of like stuff that you would kind of just do because you're like, I think it'd be better if you do this.
Right.
Like,
and you just trust and wing it.
Yeah. And it's trippy how like all that sort of stuff worked. And then where like we're suddenly, when it became, hey, dude, like I can't do this whole cartoon by myself.
Right.
Started working with a studio in the Philippines.
Oh,
so that was when I, started having to kind of try to
get in art direction and stuff like that.
And there was a lot of hard lessons learned. Like, and like I've never learned any of this other than teaching myself how to animate. Right.
Right. I mean, exactly. So that ties into my next question: is what was one of your early tough lessons in your art career, like that really like hit you like, oh.
Let's see. I'm trying to decide what direction to go here. No, he can edit the silence. Right?
One that hurt the pocket. No, we keep the silence in, so it's real.
Okay.
Yeah, like the one that made you be like, dude, I can't do that way no more.
Yeah, so this wasn't super early on, but it was, about 10 years ago. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's early within the freelance career. I was doing a project for Heineken. Mm-hmm. And I was like, can I talk about this? Yeah, I think so. Anyways, and
we'll call it Schmeineken.
Yeah. But so I was hired through a creative agency to do, beer labels, or full can designs, all this stuff. Like, it was going to be super sick for. I forget exactly what like holiday it was supposed to drop on, probably like Cinco de Mayo,
right,
Dia de los Muertos, something like that, right?
Why would you say that?
I'm that dude. Right. So, if you're looking for something culturally appropriate, you holler at me.
Right.
And but yeah, so they hit me up to do these designs, and I learned about not getting your deposit when you're supposed to get your deposit. And so that was a harsh lesson. So I was supposed to get this initial amount, and then it never shows up. I work in good faith on it that it's going to show up. Next thing I know, it's been months, and I never got anything.
Right.
And then we finished the project, and then I'm not cool with they'll pay up now, right? And then they're like, hey, so we're not going to use this. Like, what do you mean, dude? Like, and they're like, yeah, so we can't pay you the full amount anymore. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And so they kind of flexed on me being a creative agency and me being kind of green to the whole situation.
Right.
And they're like, listen, we could maybe want to use you for other projects in the future.
I'll try to like,
so they kind of big time me, and I'm like, well, they're like, so we're going to give you like a third of what you were promised.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, that's super whack, but I guess it's better than zero.
Right.
So, I ended up taking a hard L on that one.
So what was the lesson in that?
There was multiple lessons, I guess, is don't believe them. Like when someone says they're going to pay you, that doesn't mean anything.
Right.
It's supposed to happen. Yeah, that one was tough, bro, because it was like, all right, so I just like gambled my family's like whole summertime on this
for X amount,
large project, and then now I'm getting a third of what I'm supposed to get sometime in the future.
Right.
And they just, whatever. And so, I don't know. I'm not one to air that stuff, normally. I just take the L and learn from it.
Right. But so what did you do different?
Else,
what did you do different on your business practices after that?
Never worked with them again.
Right. Right.
B, definitely, try to make sure that the people come with the deposit before you start.
Before you start working.
Yeah. I mean, unless you know them, right? Like if they're a client you work with and they've always paid their bills,
right.
or they've looked out for you, whatever it is, and you know that they're going to, cool. Like that's all good.
Right.
And I mean, I don't want to go negative on everything, but
I mean, no. These are
It's easy to
lessons
do.
that people to learn, so that
Yeah.
way the cats listening to this don't make those same mistakes. Because we all have a whole trough of those, and we tend to learn
Oh,
a
for
lot more
sure.
from these things, these bad situations, than we did from good situations. So, no, you're in a safe space.
So, and I think it's, like, make sure you get a deposit.
Right.
Right? Because that deposit was more than they paid me. It should have been.
Right,
Because it's
damn.
supposed to be half. I got
Right.
a third. Like,
Right.
that's super whack. And then, I laughed when their stuff did come out and no one cared because
Right.
the other thing was they didn't want to use my stuff because it was too real.
Right.
At the time.
Right.
This is 2011.
Right. Very different times now, which is crazy. Yeah.
And it was kind of like, they were worried my stuff was too edgy.
Right. It was going to
once
alienate
again.
the others. Yeah.
And but yeah, like it would have done great just for the fact that you had new art on everything, and people that like my stuff would have swooped it. People
Right.
that had any sort of relation to it would have been hyped.
Right.
Instead, whatever. But yeah, that's why I don't drink Heineken. ever.
Right. Don't you hear that, guys? That's why.
Or nothing Heineken adjacent.
Right.
Keeps it Coronas and Modelos.
Right. Modelo, they took care of you, or they've never burned you before, so it's cool.
I've worked with them. What's up? Shouts out to them.
Okay. Yeah. So when I was talking to Stash, I took Stash to the Giants game not too long ago, and we are talking about his episode, and he's always sharing with me the different experiences that he's dealing with navigating these large scale clients and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And one of the things he brought up was a kill fee, and I didn't know what a kill fee was, and he was like, "Yeah." He's like, "So, when you start when you're doing the contract up front." Obviously you want to have whatever your deposit is, but you also, if you can, he's like, not all clients will do it. Sometimes it'll be a deal breaker. Some clients will be like, well, I ain't doing that.
Yeah.
But some, when it's good, will be like, okay, because they're envisioning the project going through anyway. So they're, oh, yeah, okay, well, if it doesn't go through and we've done 60% or 70% or more of the work, then here's a kill fee if we decide to dead the project or not use it. And I was like, ooh, how do you go about getting that in there? Because it's like, he's like, it's not every client's going to go for it, but never. So this goes into my next thing. So how do you go about pricing, like your work, murals, projects? Like how do you go about pricing?
I feel like it's always different.
Right.
Like, there's never I don't have a particular set thing. Because every client's different,
right?
And it's a trip because you work with different ones. I feel like as artists we're so used to being lowballed,
right?
But then on the rare occasions where you throw out a price and they're like, okay, and you're like, oh wait, what?
Yeah, you're like, shit.
I could have got
asked a
how
little
much?
bit more. Right.
Yeah, that happened not too long ago either, where like they gave me one price. I'm like, well, how about this? They're like, okay. I'm like, wait, how high could I have gone? Could I have got this? They're like, yeah, but not now because you already agreed to that.
Oh, shit.
I'm like, bro, come on. Like,
you're wild for even trying to re-up negotiate after you've already.
But I mean, it's always a little bit different, and it depends who you're talking to, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you know these people you're working with?
Right.
Do you not? Like, what's the relation? And so yeah, a lot of times you don't really know you have to be the only one that will bat for yourself, right? So like you have to try.
Right.
And that's another lesson right there that applies to everything, not just for prices, but also for whatever project collaboration, this and that, is that if you don't ask, the answer is no.
Right.
Like straight up. Like you told yourself no because you didn't ask.
You didn't bother to ask, right?
Yeah. And so a lot of times, like, I'll still be not wanting to say something, but then I'm like, dude,
you're your manager.
Whatever it is, like, they could say yes. Who knows?
Right.
But yeah, so I'll kind of fight a lot about prices with my own mind a lot. Like, what is this and that? And I think it's also kind of like where you get to what's the last project I did that was similar. Right. Okay, cool. It should be around that range.
Some precedents of like price.
Yeah,
range.
and so and that moves up all the time, right?
Right.
Hopefully.
Yeah, it's going right. So when it comes to that, so the criteria of pricing, do you factor in time? Like, what are your factors that you're equating in your head to come up with a price? Let's say, for example, we'll take a few examples. Let's say someone wants you to do, a large scale mural that's, 20 feet tall by 60 feet long. Like, and what are the questions you're asking, or what are you factoring in your brain to help figure out this price that you're gonna quote them for?
I mean, I guess it's the scale is probably the first
Right.
part. Is like, all right, how big is this, and then how long is it going to take?
Right.
Do I think what supplies do we need?
Right.
Is that provided by them? Is that provided by me?
Right.
Do we have to code it or not?
I mean, like
do we-
post code it, like clear code
like,
it.
does it need some in the end? Do you have to prime it yourself? Are they going to do it?
Right.
Is the wall good to go, or does it need some help?
Right. Right. So these are questions you're asking them to help determine your
And
price.
so kind of all of that, and then I feel like you always have to ask, what's your budget? Number one.
Right.
Always
Start
ask
there.
that question.
Right.
If they tell you what they have in mind, it might be different than what you have in mind.
Exactly.
It could be lower. It could be higher. It could be the exact.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I try never to throw the first number out. That's what
Right.
one of my mentors said. Don't. It's like tennis.
Yeah.
They'll be like, I don't know. I've never worked with someone like this. What does it usually cost? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, what's your budget? They just hit it right back to them. Like, it's like, how long can we go? Like, I'm like, don't say the first number, Tion. It's try so
It's
hard to
hard.
like. So I'd just be like, tell me your idea, your concept, and your budget. And what
Right.
the reason why I do it in that order is I want them to think their vision as raw and unedited as possible. Oh, I can imagine Urban Aztec doing this big wall, and it's gonna have some like Mayan stuff over here, and it's gonna flow into like this river, and it's gonna bring back the history of Concord, and it's gonna have this, and it's gonna have this 3D effect, and it's gonna be a QR, and so augmented reality. So I want them to think all of that, and I go, okay, great. Now how much is your budget? Because then they have to negotiate against their own self. Oh shit, I just said I wanted this whole fucking scene. I can't tell them I have $750. I can't tell them I have $1,500. Like, like.
It's and then also who is the client, right? Like,
Right.
is it a corporation? Is it a mom and pop shop? Is it whatever? And that's all stuff that factors in too. Where it's
Right.
kind of like, all right, well, if you're this large company, you should be paying X amount,
Right.
Versus what this
La
small
Micocana
shop.
and Concord is going to charge,
La Piñata,
Right.
It's always like I said, it's just always a little bit different,
Right.
And what you just said too about never throwing out the first number, like I try the same thing,
Right.
Like, I just heard that somewhere too, where someone was talking about negotiating is like never throw the first number, like,
Right.
That's you're the fool if you throw the first one, like, but sometimes you have to,
Right, yeah,
because they're like, well, what are you thinking? And you're like, well, I said, what's your budget? And they're like, yeah, cool. What are you thinking?
Right.
And I'm like, all right, so we're just gonna keep ping pong until I say something.
Right.
All right, I'll say something.
Right, and there's no exact science, but that is like one of those. That's one of the gems that stuck with me. Is just try not to.
And then another thing that's tough is I'll normally ask for what I actually expect.
Yeah.
And so you also should, and if we're talking negotiating, right?
Yeah.
You should pad that so that you land back where you want it to be.
Right.
You should go above what you actually are cool with.
Right.
Because then, if they're like, all right, yeah, but we don't need this or don't need that, or
Right.
we only have this much amount, then hopefully they'll land closer to where you were actually okay.
Right.
So
that's real.
you get a higher price than you expected.
Yeah, and
So-
that's one of the games from Stosh, as he was saying, even if I'm doing something for free for a nonprofit or for a community center, or giving a discount, he's like, I always tell people how much this costs,
Yeah.
and then but I'm giving it to you for this amount for these reasons. So that way, if they come back later on, the president is like, this is the amount. He said 20 racks for this, but he's giving it to me for 12 because we have this relationship where he's looking for a long-term, whatever it is. But he's like, always let people know your max, your standard, your high standard. But
that's real.
In the game, we go back and forth of like trying to not, so like, they go, I don't know. And this is the clients always do this. It's like, I don't know. I don't know how to value your work. I've never done this before. Like, what does it cost to do something like that? And I'm like, well, all types of things. What is your numbers? So if we go back and forth, like you're saying, and they don't ever give me a number, I'm just going to give an astronomical number.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not. Well, okay, well, then you have a range. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So let's get back to what you actually
So 80
thought.
grand for that 10 by 10 foot wall is too much? Okay, well, what is your budget?
Yeah.
Because, most have a range.
For sure. No, everyone has something in mind.
And if you're, like you're saying when you threw out a number and they said yes too quick, and you're like, shit. It's like, they may have, let's say, 10K for that wall, but if you say 3,500, they're like, great, then I can use this other money for like this other thing. Whereas like they actually allotted up to 10K for this art project,
Right.
And then when we learned that lesson and we started saying the higher number, and they're like, okay, and we're like, oh shit, we got that Like, damn, we get to do this. This is amazing. So, do you charge more based upon size or based upon intricacy of artwork?
Probably size, because I treat everything the same.
Okay.
I expect the same level from whatever I'm doing.
Right.
Right. So
Okay.
like anything, and that's another thing too, is like anything I put my name on,
Yeah.
I want to make sure it's on point.
Right.
And that's kind of just another thing. Is like the Raiders' commitment to excellence or whatever, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
Horrible analogy right now. Horrible.
It was just
But
to
yes,
use
yes,
the
okay.
slogan. I was
Al
going to say the
Davis.
slogan.
Okay, there you
but
go.
yeah, anyways.
It's like this is like the Oakland
Off to
A's.
Vegas we
Rooted in
go.
Oakland. Yeah, it's like horrible timing.
But yeah, so so you should have the pride in your work. I feel like that anything you work on, you're cool. Like someone sees it, they know it's you. They're like, oh yeah, that's the level we expect.
Right.
So say like when it comes to whether that's murals, toys, whatever.
Right.
I want to be able to look at it in 20 years and still be like, oh, you did your thing. All right, cool. Yeah,
Right.
like that was on point.
Right.
If I painted that today, I'd still be happy.
Right.
Even though our eye is constantly developing.
Yeah, but you put your foot in it when you did it, so to speak. No.
I think I heard that.
I know. Yeah, that was my boy who's actually a video game concept designer and a graffiti artist.
That's what's up.
So I'm gonna get him on later on. But he, anyways, without veering too far off. So how do you factor in rough designs, renderings, revisions? How does that play a role in the pricing?
It kind of all depends. Generally, I guess it's kind of an all-inclusive thing.
Okay.
For the most part.
So you're factoring that in when you throw out a number.
Yeah, like if that's going to be part of it, it's probably not the smartest thing to do, but because it is like, oh, I spent 2 weeks designing it versus how much I spent actually painting it.
Right.
It's then I forget. Oh, I should have been painting it in 3 days. Oh, it took 3 days. Like, nah, bro, it took all that other time too.
Right.
But yeah, it all depends, bro. And then just trying to make sure that all your bases are covered and
right.
I think there's also like number of changes, right? Like
right.
You don't expect to have to do a lot of.
Plus, I
changes.
was gonna say like how many revisions is like in the budget before you're like, all right, dude, we gotta like.
It depends on the gig, right?
Okay.
So
give me one of your worst scenarios where that's been like. But you don't have to say the company name, but.
He said worst scenario.
Yeah, where like you started here, but then the revisions became just.
Oh man.
Out of control, and then what did you do to handle that or mitigate that?
What if you didn't mitigate it and it just kept getting ridiculous?
We have those too.
It's funny, but yeah, because you said bring up the worst one. I worked with this. I was doing a digital mural for someone, and the creative agency had no backbone.
Right.
And they kept allowing the client to ask for changes.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, dude, what's happening, right? And so I don't know anyone at this point on this particular job. And I was like, normally I'm used to working with agencies that have your back, right? And they're
right, they'll go back to the client and be like,
look, bro, you get 2.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Right,
like,
right.
We literally went through, I don't know, 15.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, yo, what are you doing?
Right.
Like, and so eventually... what I had to do to stop it was be like, listen, if you want anything else, you have to pay for it. Like, that's that. Like, we've crossed way too many lines already. Right. And then the moment I said that, it stopped.
They were good.
Like, oh, okay.
Right.
I'm like, you were not doing the part to say, hey, guys, we can't keep asking him for stuff.
Right.
So until I put my foot down myself, it wasn't going to stop.
Right. So you let it go up to 15 revisions before you stopped. I mean, you're a generous guy.
I try to be. I always try to be cool with folks and whatever.
Yeah.
But like,
it goes a lot longer if you actually are versus just being super ass cutthroat.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's, it works for a lot of things. And then I guess, but in the fact of letting that drag on, it's not the best thing.
Right.
Until you actually upset me. And now I have to tell you to step off.
All right, then. Right.
Now I never want to see you again.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes that's the lesson is just to move off it. Yeah. We were working with, oh my God, was it 2K? NBA 2K folks.
Okay.
And what was funny is like Illuminaries had the gig. And then it got tedious for them. And they're like, you know what? we don't want this gig anymore. I'm like, we'll take it. Yeah. So we took it, and like, I had Khufu doing all the character work. It's for like a street course in the game, Legends. So they had all these legends like Larry Bird, Kobe Bryant, whatever.
Dope.
And so they're like, yeah, draw them doing, dunks and this, right? But make them like kind of, caricature. So, dude, they went back like Magic Johnson's head's too big, Kobe's legs too thick, cause the foot. I mean, it went so many times, and Koof's like, well, whatever, this is fun, it's practice. He's like, I look at it as it's fun, it's practice. I'm just drawing whatever.
Yeah.
And dude, after weeks, we're like, okay, dude, any more revisions? We're gonna have to. And they're like, okay, just one more. Can you make Kobe's head like tilted a little bit more? And so we did that, and then they never used it in any of it. And then our guy I had a guy acting as the agent go and had to chase the money down.
Yeah.
To get him to pay for it because they were just going to cut and run. And he's like, dude, no. Yeah.
That just reminded me of back in the day. I was doing a poster for Fandango for Barbershop.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, and so every actor was allowed approval of their likeness.
Oh shit. Yeah.
And
yeah.
There's like 20 people.
Dude, I heard doing Hollywood actors or celebrities rendering is just like.
Oh, it was rugged, bro. Like I think legit, there was 4 or 5 of us working on these posters.
Yeah.
This poster series. Everyone else tapped out. Like, forget it, bro. Like we're done. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna see this shit through.
Right. Because
I've been doing it so damn long. Like, and it was just like I want it to happen because I already spent so much time.
Right,
We weren't getting anything for it.
Right.
And then when it finally came out and got approved, and Cube approved right away.
Right.
Like all the main cats. It was the other cats that weren't approving.
Right.
And Nicki Minaj put the poster up and cut my name off. I'm like, oh, thanks.
Oh my god,
appreciate it. That was worth it.
Right? Yeah. I've heard that just doing anything of like either whether it's realism or caricatures or whatever on celebrities because they've been seen and shot so many times that if you don't get it exactly how they want it, they're like. They don't get it that like it's your interpretation or it's like
it's tough.
Yeah.
Because that happens a lot too, where it's when you get into likenesses, right?
Right.
So then they want your style,
right?
But you also have to make it photo exact of what they look like.
Right.
Especially in the face, 100%. Like the rest of it, maybe you can stylize a bit.
Right.
So it's funny how that does take that twist every time.
Right.
Where you're like, yo, dude, I traced your face and you still don't like this? Like,
no. You're like, no, look at the photo.
Yo, I traced it.
They're like, it's still different.
Okay, well, let me draw what you think you look like.
Right. Send me the photo you want me to use, and then they'll still not be because they know someone's touched it. It's wild. So, what would you say your 3 main skills? Of your many skills, 3 main skills that have been most helpful in navigating the business of the arts.
Let's see. I think we covered some of it. I would say number 1 to survive in being a freelance artist, you have to have drive. Like if you don't have that drive,
right?
And then like having the hustler mentality that you will make things happen. If there's nothing there, you'll create that thing.
Right.
Kind of looking for, having that creativity to see different connections, right?
Right.
And whether that's, in things that could possibly exist that don't exist now.
Right.
Or, trying to see, I guess building into the second thing, which is networking. I would think is another huge key.
Right.
Is just putting yourself out there, talking to people, like, learning everything you can about different stuff. And, I would say like, even if you're not involved in what you want to be involved in,
right.
Put yourself there.
Right.
Whether you have no business there or not, just because you want to be there.
Right.
And then you never know what's going to happen. Right. Like it's kind of like manifesting things.
Right.
Where, which is, people say this now. At the time, there was no word for this.
Right.
But like, say like for me, like going to like a Comic-Con or something like that, like that I would go to just to enjoy and trip out on and see things. Like at the same time, if you're not there, you don't meet those people. Right. Like you have to be there. You kind of got to make the sacrifice to go and chop it up and see what you
invest
can do.
In that time and that capital to get there. And
you'd be surprised how many times you meet someone at a bar after a show. Like that's
Right.
that's
right, 'cause
another
everyone's
key.
in town. Everyone's
Yeah.
right.
Like legit, whatever convention you're at, everyone's there.
Right.
And then what happens afterwards? I mean, like say you'll end up hanging out with cats that you had no idea were in the building, or just like
Right.
I've got to kick it with people that are icons.
Right,
like,
right.
I'm like, dude, what am I doing here? Like,
Right.
how did this happen? I'm like, well, you place yourself in that moment.
Right, right.
And it's not necessarily right place, right time. You kind of made it happen.
You interjected yourself in the process of
There's
things.
still some luck in recognizing, and,
Right.
But so I would say kind of networking and the drive and hustle. I think
Right.
kind of they're semi-separate, because one is fueling you and the other one
Right.
is
The actual
recognizing and
application of it. Yeah. Okay. So in that situation, tell me, if you can, a quick story about one of the really cool connections you made that led to a cool business deal from just putting yourself out there and networking and being in the right place where you're just, whether you're at a con, at some bar afterwards, or some weird connection where you just happen to go this spot and you talk to this spot that led to this and that. Like, do you have any of those?
Yeah, I mean, so let's say strictly back to what I was just talking about. So I was at San Diego Comic-Con, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, something like that.
Right.
Not sure the exact time, but kind of being some of the last people standing, right?
Right,
Like,
right,
so
right.
my homie Rooster, what's up, Big Juan? How you doing, brother? And he was like, where you at, this, that, whatever. And then I connected with him. And then he introduced me to my boy Igo and Brock and Mikey from Mondo. And Igo worked at Sideshow Collectibles. Okay. Right. And so I ended up later on working with both of those companies, probably largely just due to that one introduction. Right. And I mean, they know your work also. Right, right. Which also kind of has to happen. But, I think just getting to chop it up and, meet other people of like mind, right? They're trying to do creative stuff in the same spaces. Right. But yeah, I mean, like I had known my one partner since, probably like 07-ish or something like that. And then, you never know who knows who or this and that. Right. So we're all connected in different ways. It's all a spider web.
Right. You start and talking about this and that led to like, oh,
everyone's
shit. Yeah.
1 degree from something else. You know what I mean? Like the folks that I could connect you to, or you could connect me to, or whatever it is. Like, it's like, oh, bro, I didn't know I was even that close to that person. Right. You talk to them on the daily, or, whatever it is. Like, that's trippy, bro. Like, you never, like, art is such a weird thing. Where you never know what's going to happen, right? Like it could pop up in any which way. Right. One of the, like all the time, like something will just kind of happen and you're like, yeah, I had no idea that was going to happen. But your art is wherever it is.
It's working. It's already permeating through the world, and it's creating inspiration, and like people will be like, yo.
Like one story that always cracks me up is, I think this was like 2010-ish. Do you remember when T-Pain and Kesha were seen at the strip club?
Oh my God. Okay.
Way back. So it was everywhere, all over all the, like TMZs and all the blogs and this and that, whatever, right?
Right.
T-Pain was wearing my shirt.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
So everyone was like, yo, did you see this?
Right.
It's just a trip, bro. And so that was like a piece I had done with Kid Robot. Way back when. Yeah. But yeah, so he's wearing it in that shot that was like
and it just happened to be the shot that blew up.
And he had the good taste to be wearing it at the time. Right.
He's like, yo. So.
And then another one was Rolling Stone magazine. I had a toy, my Jaguar Warrior Dunny, which was my first like big crossover piece with Kid Robot back in the days, and it was featured. It was the only one in Rolling Stone back in the day. Wow! And I was like, no idea that was going to happen.
Right?
Like, oh, somebody looked out. And
right, and who knows what that led to beyond that. So what is one of your favorite gigs you've done?
For me personally, I mean, there's, in every medium I have a particular one, right?
Right,
but, to me, still, I think the Wolverine toy that I did is probably, like one of the things I'm still like hyped about that I can't believe happened. My favorite superhero of all time, and getting to do something officially with Marvel,
Right.
but in your style, like, is pretty
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know too many people that get to do things with Marvel in their style.
Yeah, no, it's super not normal.
Yeah. I'm waiting for Marvel to hit me up and be like, yo, we want you to do Doctor Strange, but like in your graffiti piece style. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah,
That'd be dope.
that would be fire. So multiverse of funk.
Dude, I'm saying. I mean, and this is what's dope, like, as we're rounding it out, like, what I really like about your career, you've diversified through so many different lanes, and 95% of the work that you've done for all these different clients has been your style.
Yeah,
It wasn't like, I'm a dope artist, I can do anything you want me to do, and, it doesn't look like your stuff, but you're just that talented. And there are, that's another lane of skill and dope career making for a lot of people. But as a writer, as a graffiti writer, as a b-boy hip hop practitioner, like being able to make an income, infiltrate corporate world with your style, like you didn't dilute your style, and you've got some of the biggest corporate clients ever, which validates for like artists coming up after you or people like me who are around you to be like, nah, when someone says like, oh, this is too much, it's like, nah, that just means it may not be for you, but you can represent on all levels with your style.
100%. Yeah, and I think it's, if you're genuine to who you are,
Right.
like people respect that,
Right.
and like they'll see that, oh, that's you,
Right,
you know,
right.
like it's you're not faking the funk, it's for real, like it's you're trying to live your truth on everything,
Right.
like that's what it is, like you're representing yourself, your style, your culture, like it all, you carry it all with you, that's the torch.
Right.
Yeah, it's a trip. No, I mean, legit, bro. I mean, how many people told you can't do art for for a living?
like
You
this-
can't do
yeah.
this, that. Like, I mean, when I actually went to the Art Institute in San Francisco,
Mm-hmm.
the first thing they said was 96% of you, I think it was, will not be artists. Like day one. And I was like, well, this is the same mentality I've always. I'm like, well, I don't know about the other 96
Yeah,
people.
y'all could be
I'm
y'all.
one of the ones.
Right,
Like,
right.
And like whatever I have to do, like it may not be exact, but I'm going to
Right.
make it happen. And again, that's just believing.
Yeah.
But it's funny because then every art piece I work on, you go through that whole roller coaster of like, this is gonna be sick, to be like, oh, dude, I suck, bro. What am I doing?
Right.
And then, but you're like, I just trust the process.
Right.
It's gonna happen.
Just get it out of your
will
hands.
Eventually,
Yeah.
And like how many pieces have you painted where you're like, bro, I'm not feeling this until I see the outlines.
Yeah.
It's
Or like
not-
3 weeks later when I stop looking at it and come back and look at it. Like I always have a part of the process, I think, most of the time, where somewhere along the process I'm like, oh, maybe I should have went a different direction with this.
Yeah.
And then there's a voice in the back of my head that's just like, nah, we chose to go this route for a reason. Follow it through, and you may not even realize it until someone else or the client sees it. Then they're like, oh, this is exactly. And you're like, yeah, and you oh yeah, well, what I was thinking was, and you actually
Well, that's one of the things too, is where we most of the time as an artist, you're your own harshest critic.
Yeah.
Right. It's like anything anyone's ever said to you at any time is burned into your memory of like,
Right,
I
right.
can't do that one thing because then it's not going to work.
Right.
Yeah, which is funny because like it's hard, bro. Like because even like as we're painting, drawing, whatever it is, you're looking for the things you have to fix instead of what you did right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know what I
For
mean?
sure.
And that's another harsh one too, where it's kind of like, damn, bro, I need to start looking at what I did right instead of always what I did wrong.
Yeah.
You know?
I've learned to just, if I have internal criticisms about a song I've did or like a piece, to not voice it. Let other people receive your art and them share with you, because that may help you round out your edges. But don't be like, yeah, the piece is cool, but I was trying to do symmetry and my ears not the same as the beat. Like, don't let them know that. They're not even thinking about that. Or like in a rap song, like, yeah, my second verse, I didn't really come with that as much, and I had a little itch. I need to know that shit. Just So okay.
And that's another lesson too, though. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just to like, hey, bro, like the stuff that you're hung up on, sometimes no one else notices.
Yeah.
It's just you, and
For real.
like it's a good thing to not dwell on.
Yeah, and what kind of asshole would come up to you and be like, "Yeah, man, your piece was dope, but yo, that one when you tried to be symmetrical, the right side was not like the left side. Blood, I saw a little bit of inch drop off the top.
Oh, your homies?
You'd be like, you're a jerk. Yeah, and your homies, right? Because they know how much you're slaving over symmetry.
What's that drip about, dog? That was on purpose? No, I don't think so.
See, that's when Buku stops doing symmetry for like a few months, just so purposely asymmetrical. So, okay, last two questions. What are your most favorite parts of living your career as an artist? What do you enjoy most about being an artist full time and having it be your financial whoop-de-whoop?
Well, I think being able to do art is a blessing, bro. Like that you're even able to do it at all is a blessing straight up. And then the fact that, all the stuff that you put time into, normally there's something to look at after the fact. Right. So like a lot of people, whatever they're working on, you don't necessarily have something to come back and be like, yo, that's what I created right there. Like it's gonna live on now or whatever, that piece exists somewhere. Right. Let's say you're working on whatever and that's just time gone. Right. So I think having that ability to create stuff that will go on even when you're not here. Right. Hopefully, Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's going on somebody.
I think that's probably one of the best things. And then just being able to be creative and work in art. Yeah, that's. I think I already said that.
So just being able to do art full time.
Just being able to do it and survive.
To do art full time and
then I think also like a lot of the projects and stuff that I've been working on recently are things I never imagined. They were dreams.
Right.
And I think being able to stick out for the long game. Right. Like stuff that I wanted to do when I started out, it took 20-something years, but now we're doing it.
Right.
It's like, if you have the the ability and the toughness to carry on and keep staying the course, things will eventually happen.
Right, you stuck in it long enough to see these things come fruition.
And I think that's anything really. Like if you were to spend your time on whatever it is you're trying to do, if you stuck your focus on it for that long, they will eventually happen.
Right. That's real talk. So what is the hardest part about living off of your art?
The hardest part? Let's see. I guess you... I didn't focus on this one enough at the moment. I was trying to be positive.
Yeah. Well,
all right.
This ain't a fluff piece.
Yeah. So the hardest thing is that you never can turn it off. Right. It doesn't turn off. Like, I literally don't sleep, bro. Like much at all. Like maybe like 4 hours. But like, so you're always hustling, right? You're always
it's your own business.
Thinking, so even when you appear to be not doing something, you're still thinking about all these other things you're trying to do. Right. What honestly, if I could act on every idea I've ever had, bro, it would be insane. I probably acted on 3%. Yeah. But it's crazy, bro. So like, always let's spin it positive. But yeah, so I kind of view it like. You're always planting seeds, right, and hopefully they grow. Right, they don't always grow.
So the challenge is you're always working, always planning.
Yeah, so always doing that. Right, and then a lot of times things don't happen. Right, and you have to just accept it and move on. Right, and so it's kind of like developing a thick skin. You can't, dwell on every piece of it. Right, you want to stay humble. Right. And that will help you. And because no one wants to work with people that aren't humble. Right. I'm not trying to hear about how great you are every moment of the day. No.
I'd much rather work with someone who's not as talented, who has the right attitude than a overly
people
talented
that are
jerk.
Fun and cool to work with. Like that's the best piece. And I definitely enjoy collaborating with other folks too. Like bouncing stuff. I'm like, I guess our styles hitting off of each other would be ridiculous. Right. It'd be super cool to see what happens, and it's just, and then it's fun to see how other people paint or whatever it is.
Right.
Because I don't know about everyone, but I think a lot of us are kind of like a taskmaster.
Yeah.
Where like if I watch you do something, I can kind of do it because that's how I learn.
You can understand the math.
Yeah, like,
especially if you've been doing your own style for a while, you can see
Yeah.
people's equations.
Like reading stuff, I don't necessarily learn that way.
Right,
like,
right.
But watching something happen visually is
Right.
a way easier experience. And I think it's kind of a trippy way of looking at it.
Right. Okay. 2 more. So, do you, when you're not drawing for your business, do you still have time to draw or paint like walls or just sketch?
I try to.
Yeah.
I don't always have time.
Right.
Because you kind of have to justify the time.
Right.
And that's like it's tough, bro. Because like you kind of have to do stuff to stay current and up to date on your steez.
Right.
And how you keep learning and keep progressing.
Right.
You have to be drawing and painting.
Right.
A lot, and so it's. But then, how much time can you put on trying to create your new whatever it happens to be, right?
Right.
Like I'm trying to create this cartoon idea and this story, these characters. I have to come up with who they are, what do they do, like I have to draw them all. Like each one of them takes a certain amount of time to make it happen.
Right.
Or whatever it happens to be, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah, because that's one of the challenges I've known from being around different artists, who've made a career out of it. Like a lot of my friends who have been pro skaters for most of their adult life, and they're like in our age, late 40s, early 50s, they're into music or photography. Like they had to find another creative outlet because their creative outlet became their job.
Yeah.
And so when they're not working, they're not doing that anymore. They're doing something else. Like my guys who are full-time artists, when they're not working, they're usually not painting because they're painting most of the time, or they're drawing, and so that balance, is that tricky one. Is like, do you still do your art when you're not doing your art for business? So
yeah,
we should weave it all in as you do. Okay, last thing, what is a quote or something someone told you that really helped you in navigating turning your art into a business that really stuck with you?
Let's see. So I spent some time in South Dakota studying with a native painter there named Bob Penn.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things he said was, how did he say this? It's interesting because now you're going to laugh because it has a horse in it.
We started with the horse, we ended with the horse. It's great.
So he said, take your best pony and ride into your worst fear.
Okay.
Is what he said. And basically it's kind of like, whatever your talent is, whatever you're trying to create, like that is your vehicle to do what you're trying to do.
Right.
And to be brave in the face of it.
Okay.
Like don't step back from it. And that's another thing that, is just to be brave in the moment, right? Like a lot of times, like you'll recognize a situation, but we'll shy away from it.
Right.
Step into it. Like don't ever back away. Because then, that could have led to who knows what. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like say, I ended up doing a TV show called Vinyl Addiction back in the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would interview other artists and stuff like that, go to stores, this and that. But I had never interviewed anyone.
Right.
And because other people were too like scared to do it.
Right.
So we were trying to promote our cartoon at the like Comedy Jam at Shoreline back in the day.
Okay.
And so then we had to interview all these comedians, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're trying to chop it up with them. No one wanted to step to them. And I was like, well, I'll do it then. Let's go. And so then I had, I interviewed Gabriel Iglesias, Joe Coy, Lisa Lampanelli, Angela Johnson, like all these folks. And, you got to be quick. You have to like, whatever they say, you're like, you're about to get roasted, but it's good. You roll with it.
You got to take it.
But so I think I never thought I could do that.
Right.
But then you're just thrown into the fire and you did it. Like, because you stepped up to it, and then it leads to other things.
Right.
So like, you never really know what to expect from that moment, but I would say always try to step into it.
Right. That's real. And on that note, I think, we started with the horse and we ended with a horse. It's so prophetic. Maybe horse is not your spirit animal, but maybe if you find your spirit animal, it'll guide you and you'll see it from your beginning origins of your turning your art into a career all the way to your current state. So look for your spirit
It
animal.
can be your ride or die.
Oh my God. Yes, and we're here with not Jesse Martinez, Jesse Hernandez, Urban Aztec, Art to Empire. Do it up. Blah.